Let me see. Because I've been out this past week catching up on all the doggy duty because it's been so warm out.
It's a warm 27 here.
For 69.
Yeah.
So am I the lowest at like 3?
Yeah. I don't know. I think with our wind chill, it's probably somewhere around there.
You guys win.
But
It's okay. You win.
I don't want to win, Jay. I think you win.
Yeah, highest
Yeah,
60,
Tommy's
highest 64.
Well, or Tommy wins then today. You just win in overall sunshine, right?
So
300 days a year.
Speaking of sunshine, today's episode is dating after divorce. It's kind of interesting with us all on that we're all divorced. And I know for me, dating after my first divorce was like really hard. And then my second divorce got a little bit easier. So I'm beginning to become a pro at it. That's horrible.
Or both.
Yes?
Are we talking about dating? Are we talking about romance? Are we talking about Valentine? What are we talking about, Chris?
Yes. To answer your question, yes. That's what we're talking about. All the above. So, well, first off, I thought it would be interesting to kind of talk about how, after we go through a divorce, do we start to date? When do we introduce our kids to the person that we're seeing? Is it something that kind of all happens at the same time? Is there a right way to do it? Is there a wrong way to do it? So that was the first off, just kind of, since it's Valentine's Day, kind of talk about, well, tomorrow is, but talk about that. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Like, is there...
I could probably write a book on all the wrong ways to do it.
Well, we've certainly all made mistakes, I'm sure, in doing that. And I guess I don't know that there is any right or wrong way to do it specifically. I think it depends on the situation and whether you have kids or not, how old your kids are, and all sorts of things like that. But it's interesting that this came up because I'm actually working with an author who's a divorced father of 2 girls, and he wrote an article, a draft of an article about dating as a divorced dad and dating this divorced dad and like what's happening with that. And he came to the point in the article where he started to talk about his feelings and his needs and how he had been, he'd been attracted to women who had also been divorced, and there was like this brokenness in common and attaching over that and kind of, having that in common. And then he skipped in the article right over to, but my kids and this and that, whatever. And I said, you didn't go to the place where you really needed to go, which is what about you? What about your needs? What about you want out of a relationship? And then how are you going to integrate the fact that your life is centered around your kids into the kind of relationship that you really want? So that's a long way of coming around to the idea that if you're divorced and you have children, there's a tendency to say, I'm going to put those kids first. It's all about them. And this other relationship thing that I'm going to have, well, it's got to be marginal in a way. It's got to understand those kids in a way. But if we kind of look at it the other way as to, okay, what do I really want in a partner for this stage of my life? Maybe I need someone who's whole. Maybe I need someone who can really be supportive. Maybe I need someone who doesn't need me to fix her stuff, but can help me with my stuff. Or there's a back and forth. And maybe that's the best thing for my kids too, is to have a person. This is what I said to the writer. Maybe you're looking for someone who's not necessarily bringing her own childish emotional needs into a relationship and then competing with your kids, but you want someone who's already really got her act together. So those are kind of my rambling thoughts on that topic.
No, right on. That's awesome. Does anybody else have a comment to that?
Well, and I'll share it from a little different perspective. If your kids kind of expect you to, when you break up with your wife, that the next person you bring into your relationship will be another potential wife or a woman, and then you bring a man into the picture. So that changed everything about how I integrated the kids into that, because there were two issues. How do you move on yourself, feeling like it's right that you move on? And then how do you move on with them, knowing that part of what you're doing is also challenging some of what their social acceptance or their social norm is about you, or what is, I'm not going to say right, but what is acceptable. And I found that I kept anybody that I was dating after I came out away from the kids for a long time for lots of reasons. I just didn't know what it would be like. I didn't know what they would think about it. And I wanted them to be able to feel comfortable in who they were, and trying to work through the fact that they too, had a mother and a dad that still loved them, rather than complicated by, a whole nother issue. In retrospect, I don't think I would be so timid about it. That maybe it's also because the world has gotten a little bit less affected by that side of it, because I didn't give them credit for being wise and strong and current, and almost wiser than I was, because they were from a generation that saw it differently. And I made them think, or in my mind, I was thinking they were seeing it my way. And I just wanted them not to have to deal with this. And, or I didn't want them weirded out by it, because a lot of the voices in my head said this is still kind of weird. This is, not the norm. So I think, maybe with Tom's comment and mine is, and again, this is the one theme that I see that shows up over and over again on this show, is what space are we making to talk about things that are important? And isn't the fact that mom and dad are happy and okay with who they are, and that if somebody important in their life should be in their life, that they get to have that, even if the last one isn't still going. And maybe what it does is it introduces to kids that you should be honest and open and have great integrity about who you are early on in the process, because I think kids are gathering a lot of information from who we are as we try and make decisions about the things that show up in front of us. So my turn to Randall on that one. But I guess if I were to summarize, I would say how do we give our kids credit for maybe understanding, or how do we ask them to share with us where they are in the understanding, so that we know what to do next? But that it's fair for us to include love in our life if, for some reason, whatever the reason, that love was challenged and went away. Why is it we don't get to have it? And and I know a lot of people say, well, I wouldn't date anybody because I didn't want to hurt the kids. Well, like Tom, like your comment, well, we're not here exclusively for our kids. We certainly want them to be great, but we're also here to live our own life in our own biggest and best way, and sometimes that includes, the love of another person.
That's right, Jay, and I think what we don't take into account is that our own unhappiness, that if we're unhappy with a person who doesn't meet our needs, or we've attached to for whatever reasons, or if we're unhappy because we're lonely, that hurts our kids too.
Yeah, Chris, that's right. If you're with, you put the mask on yourself first, you can't be a really good dad, I think, if you haven't attended to some of the things that make you a really good dad. Because then you're just aggravated and hurt and mean and not as in enough control of the things that are going on in you that if you address them, then they would go away.
That kind of brings up something I really had struggles with after my second divorce. So I had stepkids, or bonus kids, in that relationship. And so I went from raising them for nearly 10 years to not having them at all in my life. And that was a struggle for me. So it was like going from that blended family to now I'm a part-time dad. And it's like, what do I do with myself? Once you've had this routine of taking care of the kids, and you have we're doing family things and everything's based around the family, to be alone all of a sudden, or to even be like in a relationship that doesn't have all of that other stuff going on in it, that was a huge struggle for me, and trying to find like who I was without my family. And then, so does that make sense? Does anybody relate to that? Like trying to figure out who you are after you've been this for so long? I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a reset on your identity. Because the marriage, even if it's been horrible or problematic or whatever, has been a centerpiece or a core of your life. So who am I now that I'm not, married to this person or this person's husband or this person's wife, this person's partner or whatever? And there's a huge shift in your relationship with your kids because it's no longer moderated by the presence of another person. And there's all the searching over what went wrong and sort of, re-looking at who you are in the sense of why the relationship didn't work. But I think that it's a real opportunity for self-exploration, for being forgiving of the fact that the relationship didn't work, and then trying to understand what your contribution was to it and understand yourself better and understand what you are bringing to whatever your next relationship can be. And the second part of that is that a relationship after divorce and after you've had children, and presuming that you're probably not going to have any more at this point in your life, or sometimes you do, but depending on the timing, it's extremely liberating because that second relationship does not have the same pressures that the first one did. You're not looking to create a family with this person. You're not looking for this person maybe even to be like the be-all and end-all in the sense that you put that pressure on the first marriage, like this is it, I'm getting married for the first time, so this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. Yeah, I'd like to spend the rest of my life with this person, but you know what? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, because I've been through something already that didn't work in the way that I hoped it would. So it can be, if you look at it this way, if you put it in this frame, it can see, you know what? I'm looking to enjoy this relationship. I'm looking for happiness in this relationship. It doesn't have to bear the same burdens that the first one did.
Yeah, that's really powerful too, because that's part of that confidence that you're looking for when you get. I don't know about everybody, but for me, going through that divorce, it was kind of like beat myself up. Like, why did this fail? Even if the relationship was garbage, you can still look at it and say, what did I do wrong? I'm at fault for this. I can't find love, or I can't blah this and that and the other. And you get caught in that spiral, right? Shame spiral. And for me, coming out of that was really understanding, like you said, Jay, that oxygen mask. Starting to take better care of myself, and then in that, show up and know who it is that I want to invite into my life, and have a real understanding of the type of person that I want, so that I'm making sure that if I'm going to introduce somebody new to my kids, it's somebody of quality. It's not some person I leached onto when times were rough in my marriage and I needed, I was looking for, I don't know, I think a lot of times I meet these people, guys, girls, all alike, that they're wanting out of their relationship because this person's got all of these faults with them, and they don't take any responsibility for what they're doing and the mistakes that they're making in the relationship, which it's a shame that we, as humans, I think, we can't seem to kind of get past that, with like taking on that responsibility, that we always have to blame the other person. But for me, it was going through that transformation and really saying, okay, I'm at fault here for these things. Yeah, she has her faults, but that's not what I'm focused on right now. I'm looking at what my faults were. How do I become a better version of myself? And then as you're going through that, at least one of the things I did is I verbalized that. My son was 13, 12, 13, and now 14 during this time. I would just verbalize to him some of the stuff that I'm going through, so that he had an understanding of that, like, I'm in a rough spot. I'm trying to find myself and understand more of who I am. And so for him, seeing me do that, that was me being that example. Does that make sense? So, I don't know, that's kind of my experience. And then when it came to dating, it was like I knew who I was, and I knew what I wanted out of life. So when it came to meeting somebody, it was like, oh, we're right on the same page. So I don't know. I kind of lucked out though. I found a pretty cool one right out the gate. So, like, did you have any struggles, Jay, with your? I mean, I know you talked a little bit about it, but when you kind of, you had two sides of a coin that you were kind of dealing with there. It's like now I'm a single dad and in the dating world with kids. You kind of said something that you shied away from sharing that with your kids so much right out of the gate.
Well, so I'm a little bit older, so when all mine happened, I had a number of people who told me, gee, you're in a really rough place because, the straight world doesn't want you because you're gay, and the gay world doesn't want you because you have kids. So, where do you want to be, or how do you navigate this? So the kid thing was almost like, and I imagine, it's really not all that different, I guess, but, sometimes when you're dating somebody, the last thing you want to do is to air all of your normalcy to them. Like, I do have kids, and I'm just an accountant, and I'm not a pilot, and I travel around the world, and all the images that we put out on that are put out on this online dating thing. But sometimes aggrandize ourselves that we're just not that normal. I remember being really timid to mention the fact that I had. So it was watching right away for whether that was the turn-off switch. If you met somebody you liked and then you said kids, and now you're back to, okay, that's too much for them. But I imagine that's not an issue that's uniquely gay or straight. That's one that some people don't want kids, you like them, but you come along with a package of kids. So I think mine was a little bit, and a lot changes in very short time. So in fact, we were talking about this the other night, that the last 15 years of this was really slow transition. And then in the last 3 years, we have just completely changed what much of today's world finds acceptable and doesn't find acceptable. So the fact that we could talk about this and the fact that my kids were more okay with this than I was about a lot of it was really representative of the fact that the world was changing. So I think it's very different now. I think, to put it more in the mainstream, I think a lot of people who would get married to hide are now realizing they don't have to hide behind that, so that it doesn't create this need for divorce and at some point moving on with your life and leaving the other side of the relationship in a tough spot. They didn't go into the relationship expecting that they were going to lose their spouse to wanting to be with another gender. So to me, it doesn't need to be as complicated as it used to be. The good thing is it's not that way anymore. But I think, open minds allow us to show up authentic and really, that's the biggest thing. What would it take for us to date and be honest and open about who we are, so that the next things that we did weren't to have the perfect relationship, but to have a really good one that's honest and open and sincere?
Jay, I think you hit on something important, which is that divorce is a change in the family structure in everybody's life. It's widely prevalent in society. So, when you grow up as a kid, you have 40-50% chance that your parents are going to get divorced. And so if we can look at it as not this horrible, awful, earth-shattering, life-ending thing, and we can say, okay, there are other transitions that we go through in our lives too. Our parents die. Our kids grow up and leave the house. People get sick or whatever. And not all bad things, but they're really good transitions too. So if we can say this is another life event, it's something that at least half or even a majority of us will probably face at one point or another in our lives. And even if our primary relationship with our partner stays intact, our kids could get divorced. So it's like it's part of the fabric of life that a lot of us just don't stay with one partner for an entire lifetime. And I think that the stuff that is fed at us from Hallmark about these people who have been together for 30, 40, 50, 60 years and how they've got the wonderful relationship, or, he always puts the toilet seat down, or, she does the thing with it, whatever it is that, or they've got this thing. Like, okay, that's wonderful, that's great, that's fantastic, but that's one paradigm. That is not the be-all and end-all, and you don't have to beat yourself up if you're not that paradigm. Or if you do what Jay does, which is, go into a wholly different kind of thing, and because he couldn't be himself if he didn't. So, let's drop this stereotype that there is something wrong with you, or that there's some kind of failure involved if you're not that 80-year-old couple celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary and talking about how wonderful each other are. It's just that's one way, but it's not the only.
Right on. So, Eric, you're newly or going through a divorce currently. Could you kind of share with us some of your new experiences? We got you?
Yeah, I see him.
Yeah, let me hear. I can't hear you. Hold on a sec, Eric.
Can you hear me?
Okay, there we go.
Can you hear me?
We got you. Yep. You're good. Can you hear us now? You're good, Eric. Go ahead.
So, there was a comedian that once said that, 50% of marriages end in divorce, and the other half end in death. And I feel like that's kind of the energy that I take into this new exploration, because I'm not charged about the failure of a marriage. I'm excited about love and all these other opportunities that I'm about to experience. And admittedly, I feel like I dove into a marriage-like relationship really shortly after I found myself separated, and that was probably out of scarcity, and I was in a rush to get into that, and I wanted to simulate or recreate what I thought I was leaving behind. But now I'm in a different place where I feel way more whole, and I'm back to the understanding that all relationships are 100-100, not 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I went into my first marriage thinking I was a 50-50 partner in it. But now I know I'm 100-100, and so I take full responsibility for every relationship in whatever I can, add to it, or, all those decisions, it's all 100-100. So, I feel very much more present in my new life. And I'm also open to a whole bunch of different definitions, because I'm not necessarily wanting one thing from one person anymore. But it is a challenge, because I think as much as I say that, the other day I was just walking with a bunch load of stuff from my car, and it was really cold, and I was doing it alone, and I was just like, and a bag broke, and I was just like, how great would it be if someone else were there with me, or laugh at the bag breaking or whatever, just to be by my side. And there I was alone. I wasn't feeling in deficit, but I was just I do want someone by my side, and that was another way of knowing. But for the most part, I would say, other than trips to my car, I'm fine redefining love in the moment without too much of a a strategy or a sense of a void in my life. But yeah, I was in such a rush when I first started, and I wanted to create or recreate a marriage-like relationship, and that probably isn't I really am. So that was just who I thought I was supposed to be for the kids. So we'll see. It's Valentine's weekend, and I have no idea what it's going to look like, and that's awesome. So we'll see.
Well, good luck. But I'll be honest. When I got single, part of me was like, "All right, single, ready to mingle. You know, like game on, ladies, where you at? But the reality of it was a little different. Now, my first divorce, I have to say, it was like, I'm divorced. You know, this, I thought that was going to be it. I was like, I'm never getting married again and everything else. And I went and kind of became, I don't know, I was really negative towards the idea of love. Like, you know, oh, love's just a bunch of BS. And not really understanding the whole concept of loving thyself first. You know, doing that, putting that oxygen mask on. And once you start to take care of you, then it's like you start to attract the things that you want in your life, which doesn't really make sense until you start to realize that. And that's where, you know, going through the second divorce, I'm so grateful that I decided to do all of this personal growth, the self-exploration, because it was like finding that nugget of gold in a pile of rocks.
You know, Chris, maybe what it is that we're so busy taking forward everybody else's perspective of what love is. In fact, you know, Tom, I think you just said, you know, or Chris, you did, you know, you get the card, you've been married for 40 years, and everything is perfect. And that's the image of love. And that's what, if you read any of those cards, if you go through the Hallmark shops or the CVS's and look at the Valentine's cards, I mean, they're this gooey, you know, kind of almost diabetically sweet love cards. Instead of, hey, love, I mean, life is tough and we're doing it. Or, you know, maybe that one's not going to sell, but there's so much requirement that it looked like something special that when we're not in it, we think there's something wrong with us. And Tom, I think that speaks to your point, saying, look, if you know half of the relationships are going to end in divorce, and not that we want that, but if that's what we understand, then the question is, what do we think not to have that? But what are the false images about what it is supposed to be that set us up that we couldn't make it work?
Right.
That we went in saying it has to look like this, and then when it wasn't, we were ready to throw it away because we had somebody else's definition about what love is and what Valentine's is. In fact, I was talking with a couple of the people that I see at the gym in the morning, and they said, you know, this Valentine's thing just drives me nuts. I mean, why once a year do you buy a king-size bear for somebody, you know, or a 5-pound box of chocolates on that one day? Isn't it, first of all, something you should do all the time? And secondly, why that stuff? You know, what does a bear have to do with anything? Or the time where you actually buy underwear? You know, I'm trying to understand the messaging that we get about what love is, and why does it show up like this, and what voices do we then investigate and have ourselves about what this is for us?
What's it? You know, those are great questions, Jay. Because to me, Valentine's Day is a completely manufactured holiday.
Mother's Day too.
It's great, yeah. It's a consumer holiday, and it's great to celebrate your romance. The legend and the imagery, of course, of Cupid, and like the idea that, well, love is just this arrow, mystical, magical arrow striking you, and suddenly you're smitten, and then, you know, everything after that is it's all chocolate and roses is just BS. But you know, but it also, I think Valentine's Day is, you know, besides like your partner's anniversary and birthday, or, you know, your birthday, where, I mean, if it's your partner's birthday, okay, so it's on you, and if it's the anniversary, it really should be neutral. But Valentine's Day puts pressure on men specifically. It is marketed as the day that you, the guy, are supposed to recognize and appreciate and shower love and affection and gifts and all of this stuff on your partner, right? So you know, so how do you relieve that pressure, and how do you get in touch with what the day is really about? So if you strip all of that away and you think about a couple of things, well, what do I really love about this person? You know, what do I want to recognize about this person? And then how can we as a couple celebrate our romance? How can we celebrate what we enjoy about being together, instead of like this huge onus being on me, you know, to do these things for you? and there's no inverse of it. There's no day of the year when the female partner is supposed to celebrate and shower affection and do all this nice stuff for the. Is there? Does anybody know what that day is?
It's the other 364.
Yeah. Nicely said, Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I'm 100% with you, and I'm also a romantic. So like I feel like I'm going to New York City, and I love watching the Empire State Building lit up in red. And I love movies where people meet at the top of the Empire State Building on Valentine's Day when it's all lit up. And sometimes like that's okay that I love that. It's also okay that I want to meditate with my next partner and come together in that way. And I was actually curious what the names of modern day holidays would be if we came up with them. Got over a really good fight day, or
We didn't divorce today.
What could we celebrate? That is real, that's gritty, that's who knows? But I think it would be a fun exploration to talk to Hallmark or some other alternative card making company and come up with our own set of holidays.
Well, yeah, and holidays that are not one-sided, because Valentine's Day goes back to this whole concept of courtly love in a sense. You're supposed to woo your partner with all of this stuff and all of these proofs of how much you care and value her and all of that, which is all part of the fabric of a relationship, but that the courtly love paradigm just doesn't apply today.
Yeah, that it's interesting because it brings back that me going through my divorce. She moved out. My last wife moved out in January, so Valentine's Day was right there, right after she moved out, and it was like, I know what I'm gonna do to win her back, and so I thought long and hard on all the things that she said that I didn't do or that I never. One of the things I helped her get through nursing school, and then when she graduated, I didn't celebrate enough that she graduated, I guess. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go buy her a stuffed animal, one of those Build-A-Bears, and it's got a whole nursing outfit. So I buy her that, and then I thought, what else would go really cool with that is a little Pandora nurse bracelet thing. So I go and I buy that, and then I'm like, oh, I'll get her a thing of chocolate dip or strawberry dip chocolate things, right? And a box of those and flowers, and I don't know. I spent like $250, $300 or something on all this crap that I hadn't done for her in so long because I was gonna, show her that I really gave a shit, right? And it was kind of like, oh, cool, thanks, really? How else do I show you how I feel about you? I bought you all this crap.
Chris, maybe you bring up the really good point is, what is the real discussion here? I mean, if dating after divorce, but it's really, how are we celebrating love? I mean, what would it look like? And how does the family talk about what it is? How does the relationship talk about what it is? Just so that a wise relationship says, don't spend money like that on me. Let's, walk the beach together. You make the time. I don't need something else at some point in time is going to sit in our yard sale. It's what are those definitions, and how might we be strong enough to create this for ourselves and not let the world tell us what it's supposed to look like? So I wondered, and so, I mean, I love Eric's comment. It is kind of cool that the Empire State Building is all lit up for that. And it's because love should be the thing we celebrate a lot. And that we celebrate a day of it is terrific, though that it should happen more. But now we're back to the commercialization of the celebration of the love. But what if the biggest thing that happened that day was that we made time to look at the person that we chose to be with a different set of eyes and an appreciative set of eyes, and that's all that it was. Because if we could just stop and notice for a minute, we would see amazing things that we didn't notice caught up in the day-to-day struggle of stuff. We've got bills, we've got homework, we've got activities, we've got winter, we've got all this stuff is coming in, and every one of them creates a really nice block to the thing that you need to do most, which is stop and notice. What about this person was so remarkable that made me smitten, or that I fell in love with them, and then how do I see it again, and then again, and again, instead of letting the noise of the world say, let me just show her I love those commercials, right? Show her you love her. Okay, I like that. But Jared's jewelry store thinks you should show her you love her with some jewelry. Or what if you just really spent some time with her? And I guess, I'll throw this out being a little bit, I'm normally not that cynical, but this just calls for it, so I'll throw it out there. So if at the end of spending huge, wonderful, emotional time with them, they're like, where's the jewelry? Then maybe you got the wrong one.
Yep.
Well,
Right.
and I feel like, this is also an interesting thing because, recently I've taken on, a deeper dive into the 5 love languages. And so, for lack of a better excuse, I mean, like, in essence, I think Valentine's Day is for one of the 5 love languages, which is, gift giving, and quality time, and I mean, Hallmark can combine them all and put words of affirmation and all these other things, but if the gifts are landing with the thought, then you kind of know that you haven't hit your love language. And I used to take offense to that. I used to be like, oh, I did all this stuff, and you don't feel my love. But now, like, I'm like, I must not have hit your love language. What is your love language? And I feel like I have a deeper understanding of what better questions to ask, if that makes sense. So anyway, I mean, that's. I feel like a love language conversation is ripe here.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I'd really like to hear is, Tommy, you came up with that thing I love so much with your bonus kids and, being a bonus dad. Is there any other kind of creative, fun things that you do around Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day, Thanksgiving? Yeah, let's just go totally off subject real quick. I want to talk about Thanksgiving real quick.
Thanksgiving, we are crazy. We have a turkey. Anyway. It's really hard to kind of plan things out because in our household, it's every other weekend we have the kids. Well, let me phrase it. Every other weekend we have all 3 kids. And so, for example, tomorrow being Valentine's Day, I'll see Connor. He's got hockey practice, so I will see him there. One of the things I've already thought about doing on today is to go and do some last-minute card shopping. Yeah, I haven't bought any cards, but anyway. But go get him a card, get the girls, a card as well. But again, in our situation, we don't have the kids on a regular basis, so therefore, I don't want to call Valentine's Day a holiday, but when we have events like this, it's honestly I'm really bad about planning. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow night for my wife and I, because it will be her night tomorrow night. I'm so blessed that she's not one of those ladies that, well, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? I mean, she's very laid back. She'd be happy if I said, hey, let's just run to, Subway, or we'll go maybe grab some Chinese or whatever. But as far as the blended family goes, it just depends on how that particular holiday lands on the weekend. And real quick to kind of recap what Eric you were saying about the grocery bags breaking and being there alone. There was one night I wish I was alone. The night we were putting the groceries in the car, and I turned around. My wife had shut the hatch on my head. So that was one of those moments where I really wish I was single.
Yeah.
So be grateful in those moments, Eric. Just be grateful that sometimes you are alone. And
In the fear that someone would be shutting a hatchback on my head,
exactly.
like that's the alternative. That's what I. If I
Those are the only
someone
two
that
choices
would,
there.
they would.
Or throwing something at you or whatever it was. It happened.
Well, so can I ask something, Tommy? So maybe it's because we grew up in a big family and we didn't have a lot of money, so we were like the mill at Christmas and holidays, where somebody would develop some hobby or craft, and then we would make that. So sometimes it was the bottles you cover with the masking tape, and then you put shoe polish on it, and it looks like this ancient old vessel, and everybody got it. But it was also that about cards. And I remember my folks were really aware about the idea of gift giving should be something really personal. And that meant, obviously, that you knew them well enough not to buy them something that you like more than they do. But in most cases, it was, don't buy something. And I just throw the challenge out. What if, in this holiday, you don't buy anything? What could you do? How would it look? Who might be involved? How might it change things? And in that, what if there's a new tradition built?
Well, to that point, Jay, 2 Christmases ago, my youngest bonus daughter, Becca, had made this little coupon that said, in lieu of a Christmas gift, let's spend the day together. And so this year, she was all upset because she didn't have any money. And I said, Becca, what you did last year was brilliant. I mean, like you said, Jay, you don't need to go to the store and get a card. Make things. On my nightstand, I have a oversized, card of some sort that my son made for me. It was a little homemade little book he made. And again, that's sitting next to my nightstand because that means so much to me. And you're right, Jay. I think with everything that goes on in society, that we need to be that instant gratification. Therefore, on my way home, I need to stop and get a card and have something. No, I agree. I think that we do need to sit back, take a step back, and go, let me make something. Let me do something. Real quick, my very first Valentine's with my wife, I don't like steak. I'm not a steak person. Even though I grew up in Chicago, where, sorry, Thomas. I made her a steak dinner. Our very first date was at a steak place. But I think that was far more romantic than going out to dinner and all that. And I agree, Jay. I think making things is falling way behind than going to the store and buying a card.
I just wonder if and it depends on what people like. I mean, so if you know the other person really well, what's one thing they really like? So if they are somebody who likes to cook, then maybe the event is, let's cook dinner together.
Yes.
Doesn't matter how it comes out, doesn't matter any of that stuff. Or if you're the type that loves a fancy meal, then okay, we can do the fancy meal, but what if I have the kids serve us? We're going to work behind the scenes. So you go out for 2 hours, let us work it all up, and when you come back, you'll be greeted by the wait staff that previously looked like the 3 kids, and then we're going to host dinner for you because that's what we want to do for you. But it's because we know it's meaningful for her, for them, or that she could also, in Valentine's Day, usher you out and say, here's what I'd like to do for you. And back to Tom's point at the beginning, so that the pressure seems to be on us to deliver on this, when really the challenge is, how do we both deliver on celebrating love, whatever it looks like, however it looks, what matters to you, what matters to me. That now I guess I'm back to, what would the open conversation be going into the holiday? I don't have to surprise you so much as I have to deliver something so that I reinforce and acknowledge and validate the fact that you're the one I want to be with. And that doesn't require, spending millions of dollars, though much of the news today would require. If you don't have this size diamond, then I guess I just don't love you that much. Really? Who came up with that?
Right. That's kind of my thing, right? Where you didn't buy me this when I graduated from nursing school. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. So then I'm like, I'm doing it all. I give it to what? That didn't do any good except for drain my bank account.
This came up with my first wife, actually, when we had our first child, and she asked me, "Where's my birthing gift?" And
Never heard that.
I didn't even know what she was talking about.
It's
And
the
when I
one you
talked to my therapist about it later, he was an older guy, but he hadn't really heard of this either. And she wanted a very expensive purse as her birthing gift, like as kind of a status symbol purse. And I said no for a number of reasons. One, that's money that could be going in a kid's college fund. It shouldn't be going on your arm right now after we just had a baby. But also because that gift had nothing to do with, like, usness, and bringing a child into the world. I mean, it's more like, I had a baby, I went through that, and I am not, minimizing what any woman goes through when having a child. That is like, that is a hugely major thing, and it should be recognized in many ways. But I had a baby, and look what, look at my, it just seemed wrong to me. But if the proof of love is so that the person can take it out into the world and say, look how much my partner loves me, then I think there's something wrong with it. If it's more like, oh, honey, look how much I love you, and that's sort of between the two of you, then I think it's much more meaningful.
Well, I feel like a lot of these things are indicative of all of our first relationships, and now how we're compensating, and figuring out what is truly right and what love means now. And I mean, yay, I heard about birthing gifts, and I thought that was kind of cool, and I think I bought a necklace for at least one or two of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have too much charge for that. I think there is an interesting thing because I grew up in I don't know.
We're kind of losing you a little bit, Eric.
It's in Klingon.
Oh,
right
I'm
now.
sorry. Is this better?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I feel like, one of the things that I want to do is I want to be over-the-top romantic and speak the love language that my partner, whoever it is in the moment, wants to hear, And so maybe that's the most practical thing we can do is say, you know what? I want to know that you want a purse, and I want to put everything I love into picking out this purse for you. And I mean, the truth is, if she were the right person for you, then you probably would have loved buying that purse, But the truth is, she wasn't, and you're no longer with her, and so there's other experiences we're gonna have, and that was just one symptom of why you weren't right for each other.
Right.
But so my feeling is, like, looking forward into what the future of love can hold for any and all of us is that, like, let's learn our partner's love languages. Let's dive into that, and in a way, like, the opportunity is to really, really say, how can I serve you? Like, how do you feel loved? And make this day and transform this day into that day, and transform Valentine's Day into that kind of a day. Forget what Hallmark wants to, talk about with it,
Right. No, that...
Yep,
Perfect. Right on.
absolutely.
So, it's getting kind of late. My phone has been blowing up right now. I am supposed to be on a meeting in a few minutes, so I hate to cut this short, but I got to jump off due to some scheduling conflicts in a few minutes. But this was a great talk. I think we got, really down to the idea of what dating after divorce is all about, right? So, Jay, could you kind of close us with like a good? I love putting you on the spot for this stuff, but you do just such a great job at it. Just kind of like a coaching. So as we're going into this holiday, what would be a good kind of coaching, whether it be with our partner or with our kids? What is a good technique that we could use in this time of the year?
Well, I think
does that make sense?
Yeah, that's, Eric said it best. How would you discover the love language between you and each of your kids? How would you discover the love language? I love that phrase, Eric. That's a great phrase. The love language between you and your spouse or your partner. And isn't it a time, if the world gets you busy, that at least this once a year you just get back to zero? You get back right to ground zero and say, okay, for us, how does it look? Because you've been changing and I've been changing. Let's get reconnected to our own language of love. How do we look at each other? Where do we spend time? What matters? What doesn't matter? And to have that conversation itself might be the gift. You know, that to start by saying, I really want to know more, because things are never the same. You wake up and the world's different. So what if the event was, let's see if we can figure out what the love language between us, in the house, between the kids is. That would be, Eric, nicely done. I really like that.
So showing up, being present, and discovering what that love language is between your partner and your kids, right? So
yeah, having the courage to ask about it, because it takes courage to do that.
Yeah, so being present, you can have that open conversation with them and be vulnerable. I think that's men's hardest problem, is to be vulnerable in these types of situations, especially after we've gone through that divorce and we've been scarred and beaten. That vulnerability is a tough issue to deal with.
Yeah, but the benefit of this is, if you can be courageous enough to try it, then the benefit on the other side is extraordinary. So, the reminder is, there's a great line that Mary Tyler Moore says, I don't quote her all the time, but she says this one. She says, you'd never discover how brave you are if your world were always one thing. So the tough things show you that you can be that, and that the benefit of having a tough discussion will give you the ability to know what to do next. That, I think, is pretty powerful, particularly when it comes to love.
It's awesome. All right, well, thank you, gentlemen. This is a great show. I look forward to next week. So let's see. Next week will be the 20th. We're going to talk about dads, parenting, and finances. So what are your responsibility as a dad financially, and how do we teach our kids about money, tithing, saving, having their fun money, big ticket items, and everything else. So that's what we're going to discuss next week, is all going to be about finances. So Jay, maybe you could switch hats from coach and to CPA, right?
That hat's been gone. I'll be a spectator in this one.
Yeah, I'm not going to give any parenting tips for saving and all that, investments.
I'll look to see what everybody else does.
Sounds good. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Happy
Valentine's Day.
And happy,
Bye.
yeah, you too.
Bye, guys.
Bye.